episode 222 of the 359 podcast, and may the 4th be with you all. I'm here with Alfred and Ben Fox Rubin. Good morning, guys.
What up?
I didn't think we were going to do Star Wars stuff. I thought we all agreed.
Try and stop me.
I was doing a beatboxing mime.
Okay.
That was not Star Wars related at all.
Going to go Star Trek stuff. Anyway, what we've got today for you is we'll be talking about the Google Pixel, what our wish list is for the next one, and how it can compete against the Galaxy S8. I'm sure we'll get some good questions and comments about that. Also wanted to round out the show talking about the Google Docs phishing scam that got shut down pretty quickly yesterday, and also something about a red bathing suit on Instagram, which Alfred is going to fill us in on.
If you haven't seen it, it's hilarious. Like, just the way the saga unfolded, such an internet dumpster fire.
You will literally get 45 seconds to explain it to people, so good luck doing that. So without further ado, we're going to get this thing rolling. Send in your questions and comments. We'll get to as many as we can at the end of the show. And let's podcast.
All right, here we go in 3, 2...
Welcome to the 359. I'm Ben Fox Rubin.
I'm Alfred Ng.
With the Samsung S8 and LG G6 already out, our own Lynn La offered up a smart wish list for what she'd like to see in the next Google Pixel. Two of the biggest weaknesses she identified are the current Pixel's lack of waterproofing and its design, which includes a whole lot of bezel. Alfred, what do you think of this phone?
I actually really appreciate the Pixel. I kind of wish I had one, but I mean, I've already got like 2 phones. There's no reason for me to have 3.
Okay.
And I also don't want to buy it, but it's hard to find in stock right now. So for me, that would be the number one demand, to actually meet, the demand on it, where like a lot of people want Pixels, but they can't get them. And then by the time they can get them, they might as well just wait for the next one.
One of the things that I think is most noticeable for me about it is that the design looked perfectly reasonable when this got introduced in October last year. And now with the S8 coming out, it already looks a little old hat. I mean, like, you could disagree with me on that, because I know the iPhone has looked basically the same for the last 3 years, but the S8 really like pushed things forward with design, with like the no bezel look. So I'm wondering if Google is going to go that route.
I think most phones are actually going to go that route. I just think that the, Galaxy S8 was one of the first ones to be able to do that. I mean, they had been toying around with it for a long time with their, edge devices.
Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on the waterproofing? I don't drop my phone in the toilet that often.
Yes, but that's not the reason why it's waterproof. They're not waterproofing. It's like, oh, go ahead and throw it in your sink. It's one of those things where it's like, oh, if it's, raining really heavily out and you don't have an umbrella, or if you do happen to drop it in the sink, that's not something that you should have to worry about. And I think waterproofing phones should be a standard at this point.
Yeah, those do definitely seem like table stakes. I would agree. So we do want to caveat, I think Google I/O is coming up pretty soon this month, but we aren't really expecting this phone to be introduced until October. So wait a little bit longer for that.
Season.
Yeah. Next, Google Docs was hit by a massive phishing scam yesterday, but don't worry, the Goog shut down the problem fairly quickly, right?
Yeah, so what Google did, because this wasn't any kind of malware, this was actually more of a, look-alike kind of thing, where they made an app that made it look like it was Google Doc, but it wasn't. And then when you went to it, it would ask you for permission to get access to your account. So even if you don't type in your password or type in your username or anything like that, the way typical phishing attacks work, this one is more of an authorization scheme where you say, oh, I'll give permission to it because it's Google Docs. I've given permission to it all the time. But the thing is that, they don't need your password if they have the permission. It's pretty much the equivalent of that. So if you agreed on it, then they have access to your account. And then it was basically, they could send that to all your friends and contacts after that.
That sounds nice.
The good news is, according to Google at least, they've gotten rid of this rogue app, and it only really affected 0.1% of all, Gmail users, which is still a lot. I mean, considering
because how many people use it.
Yeah.
Last up, we also wanted to talk about something happened with a red dress on Instagram.
Yes.
Fill us in on this.
So it's a red bathing suit, and if you've been seeing
my mistake.
Yes, if you've been seeing it on Instagram all over, it's because one company thought, as a social media promotion, if you repost this image, we'll give you,
this free bathing suit.
Yes. But the problem with that is that people on the internet love free things. So it turns out that they can't meet the demand. Surprise, surprise. And this whole thing just completely backfired and blew up in their faces, because now this image is all over. People are really annoyed by it. and they can't even give it away because
Right.
there's so many like people like demanding it.
Well, at least we know the name of this company now. Maybe they got some small benefit out of that, which I'm not going to plug.
I mean, you can't even pay like to get rid of that kind of negative press on you.
I guess that's true. Well, if you want to read more about these stories, check us out on CNET. I'm Ben Fox Rubin.
I'm Alfred.
Thanks for listening.
All right, jumping into the chat. Yes says regarding the phone, the Pixel, is battery life is the number one issue.
Yeah, that is a very good point, and one that Lynn mentioned in the story. I didn't actually get to it in the podcast. In the testing that CNET did, I think they said 13 hours for the Pixel, which is pretty good. If they stuck with 13 hours, that's great. However, the S8 and the S8 Plus get you closer to 16 and 18 hours. So if Google hopes to keep up, that is definitely a very good point that they're going to want to amp up the battery as well.
I mean, I still think availability is their biggest issue. Like when it came out, it basically was if you can either buy it through the Play Store, like straight from us, or you can get it through Verizon, which means that you like if you wanted to do kind of, oh, let me just pay like $30 a month for like the next 2 years, you can only do that if you had Verizon, which like is very frustrating. Like as some, I mean, there's so many other phone companies out there. Just make it available through.
I didn't realize it was still having availability issues. I mean, like this thing was introduced months ago.
Yeah.
So like maybe they really aren't making that many of them.
I mean, and the other thing too is, it obviously should be on the next, chip that comes out, like because the Galaxy S8 is on the Snapdragon 835 now, which kind of makes every other phone look like it's old news at this point.
Yeah.
Like it's not even going to be able to reach not like near 5G capability, which isn't out now, but like you can reach much faster speeds with like the new
Right.
new
If this
Snapdragon.
thing is coming out in October, my assumption would be that they're going to get the newest
Yes.
Qualcomm chip. But, again, this is all speculation. We're just kind of wish listing and spitballing here. So we don't actually have any super duper inside knowledge on what this next Pixel is actually going to look like quite yet.
Brian comments that yes, availability is the number one issue for him and for many.
Is this Brian like a commenter or you?
Brian Flores. I don't.
Okay.
Brian doesn't speak in the third person. Yathu, our friend Yathu.
What's up, Yathu?
Says, as long as the S8 doesn't launch pure Android edition phone, the Pixel does have hope. And he brings it full
Great
circle.
point.
Says, even Star Wars was built on hope.
Oh, my God.
Bless you for that.
Bless you, Yathu. That's a great point, though. A lot of Samsung customers get really frustrated about the bloatware. That's been an issue for Samsung with their phones for years. That hasn't prevented them from being the number one phone maker. But at the same time, it really gives a lot of big time Android fans, like this is pure Android, unadulterated. Here you go.
I mean, that was always a big draw for like all the Nexus phones where you were going to be the first to get, all the updates from Android. And then you were also going to be not going to have, Samsung Milk on your phone or like Verizon.
Whatever lameness.
Whatever.
Yeah, there are all those extra folders
Yes.
that they throw in there.
Yeah, so that was the main appeal of it. But, those phones were also like $250. Now, like they're charging like a premium price because they have a premium device and it's not available, and they should be, adding all these features in.
This is going to sound like totally first world problem, whatever, but
That's our
the
whole
fact,
website.
Right, it's true. Let's admit it. The fact that the fingerprint sensor is actually in a better location on the Pixel as opposed to the S8 is also beneficial. Like they put the fingerprint sensor too close to the camera on the S8. The Pixel, it's a little bit easier to get to, and it's right in the middle. You're not going to accidentally like touch the camera.
The camera. Yeah. I mean, I think when the Galaxy S8 like was announced, they were like showing it with like some kind of like wiper like that you could actually put on the not put on, but like used to like wipe down the camera, like because they were expecting people to like smudge it.
That's just a design flaw.
That's hilarious.
I don't really like that.
Well, the reason why they
doesn't
put
seem
it
good.
there is because it was like last minute. They wanted to keep it originally where it was, but if they were going to get rid of the bezel, it was like, and they couldn't figure out how to make a fingerprint scanner and like a home button at the same time without
Right.
the bezel.
Right. And we're expecting, or we're at least hoping Apple might get there when they announce their phone. We're expecting sometime around September.
I mean,
so that'll be
I
interesting.
like the fingerprint scanner on the back though. It's so much better than like this, where you can like do this. My only problem with the S8 version is that phone is huge, and I feel like you have to like stretch like super hard to be able
Right.
to.
We've talked about this before. the two of us with our tiny hands. Not very well trained for the S8 Plus. So
Juan in the chat has a wish list. He says, for the Pixel, how about both Daydream and Tango?
that would be great. That's a great idea. I mean, like, look, Project Tango is still very early days, and it's only in like one LG phone that we constantly forget the name of. Is it an LG phone?
I thought it was Lenovo.
It might be yeah, you're right. It's the Lenovo something or other.
I've seen it. It's huge.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
the thing. Like if it needs to have like all this like insane processing power to be able to use Tango
Right.
currently. So if you want it, like the phone is gonna be like,
And it needs extra cameras, so it needs more space to
Yeah.
like actually get like the three dimensionality of Project Tango. This is an AR thing, by the way. If you guys haven't heard of Project Tango, but Tango is a Google concept, so the idea of adding it into the Pixel makes a lot of sense.
like if you're gonna have a phone that's big enough for Tango, like you're not gonna be able to do Daydream because it'll like just weigh your head down. Like,
That's a funny idea.
We have some criticisms coming through. Brian Barry says the Verizon exclusive was stupid. It made a lot of people less familiar with Google think they couldn't get the phone, and I would sympathize with that. I'm kind of grandfathered into an AT&T deal. I don't love it, but it is what it is.
I think
I was very interested in Pixel, and
well, the thing is,
you can
still
buy it
get
directly.
You
Yeah.
can, but
I'm not going to buy it off the shelf. I want a deal.
yeah, that's the
Great
thing.
point.
My gripe with it is because it was like exclusively through Verizon that it was basically either you're gonna pay in full for this from Google and then just put your SIM card in it, which is what they've done for like the Nexus and all these devices.
Michael Brown, Rob, and several others point out that there is financing available.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that's different. Like T-Mobile, AT&T, Sprint, they all like did their own specific offers for it, but it's like all of these like kind of workarounds where it's like you have to buy it first and then go to T-Mobile with it, and then they'll give you like credit for it and things like that.
It's not very customer friendly. You're
No.
totally right about that. Especially like when you're adding on top of that the like the availability issues. It's definitely like
Yeah.
Google putting a lot of stones in its path to actually become much more competitive in this market.
My theory on the reason why they did it as a Verizon exclusive in the first place is because this was their first run as like we're making our own phone, and they wanted to make sure that the experience was like as smooth as possible.
Mhm.
Where I think they sided with Verizon on that one. I mean, when the first Android phone came out, it was a T-Mobile exclusive at first.
Yeah, as many will recall, the Amazon Fire Phone was also an exclusive with AT&T, and that did not work. I think the Pixel has obviously done better than the Fire Phone, but I totally agree with people that these types of exclusive deals aren't customer friendly.
I honestly thought that we did away with like carrier exclusive phones like a long time ago.
We did to a certain extent.
Google came out and decided to prove me wrong, and let's see how well that's paid off for them since.
Natasha says the Pixel was too expensive and not enough features. I had the Note 7, and minus the exploding part, it was hands down the best phone. Pixel was no comparison.
Yeah, I mean, Natasha definitely brings up the point that like the folks that did get the Note 7 absolutely loved it, and a lot of the reviews before all those problems started coming out with them were really glowing, and Samsung packed a lot of really impressive features into that phone. So I can definitely appreciate the fact that you might have felt let down after going to the Pixel, which was like a little bit more of a run of the mill.
I mean, I still think the Pixel is a great device, but for me, the biggest selling point was the unlimited storage on like Google Photos. That was incredible. I honestly wish like every Android phone just had that feature.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
sure
definitely
Google
a
has
really
some-
nice selling point.
I'm sure
for
Google has some preferential treatment for their own phone, but it makes so much more sense.
I love having our regulars and friends coming on back. Michael Brown says, do you think the design of the Pixel 2 would be completely different from the first? As he confers with Imagine Sagi, who says the first version of any phone usually isn't the best. The Pixel 2 will probably be better in every single way. Ricky expands on this, saying, I really hope the Pixel 2 looks totally different. And then Michael Brown brings it full circle, says, compare the first iPhone with the first Pixel. iPhone had the same problems, availability, and exclusivity.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
He's absolutely 110% right.
So I have heard the point that like, especially with the first Pixel, what is it? They got HTC to build it, and it's basically like off the shelf parts.
Yeah.
So They wanted to see the viability of it. They were a little bit more careful with it, with bringing it to Verizon, so they would at least have a major carrier back it up and advertise it. The expectation, I would think, from folks in the like tech sphere, from customers, whatever, is that this is going to be a much better, much more different design, because they're going to have a whole other year to actually design this thing with like its own customized look, as opposed to whatever HTC was able to pull off the shelf.
Matthew Datcher says, "Would having we're moving into another topic here. Sorry, I got distracted for a second. Let's move on to the Google Docs issue.
That's all you, man."
Matthew Datcher says, "Would having two-factor authentication have protected people from the Google scam?"
No, because two-factor authentication is usually when you log in, like you type your password in, and then it sends your phone a text, or it sends another email address like, oh, here's the code, you can put it in. This one was you specifically gave permission for them to do it already. So you're not using a password here. So two-factor authentication wouldn't have done anything. Because even if they have have access to it, they can't log in from a different device.
Right.
And that's where two-factor authentication comes in. In phishing, when somebody has your password, then they just log into your account. And if you don't have two-factor authentication, that's different. But in this case, they already have access. But they only have access to the device from the device where you like gave it permission already. So so in this case, the Google Docs like rogue app. So this wasn't actually Google Docs. This was like an app, like kind of like any other app that you see, like Google Sheets, or like any like I'm trying to think like what other apps I use. I use like Buffer, like Makegif, things like that. Like you give them permission to get access to your accounts and your Gmail accounts and things like that. Like TweetDeck, TweetDeck has permission in your Twitter. So in that case, this basically looked like Google Docs, but it wasn't. And then you give it access, you give it permission to like read your emails and write emails on your behalf, kind of thing. And then most companies like won't do anything with that. You only give it permission so that you can use it to do those functions. But in this case, because they had permission, they pretty much had your password without ever needing to log in. So two-factor authentication didn't come in at all here.
Well, luckily they attacked everybody all at once, so it was like much more bald-faced and obvious than I guess it could have been if they were a little bit more targeted about it.
To be fair, it was fairly smart. Like
it was a different
scam.
Yeah, it was a different kind of attack. I just think it got way more attention because they literally blasted everybody.
Well, no, I think it got way more attention because they literally blasted like newsrooms and journalists. No, I'm serious. They were the majority of the targets. Like average people that I were talking to didn't even really know what I was talking about.
Wow.
Until they checked the news.
Could have been the Russians.
No, this was specifically targeted in newsrooms. That's why it was blowing up on Twitter way before any of the news broke. All these reporters that I was following was talking about this. Don't click on this. You might have gotten an email from me. Don't fall for it.
I saw it lighting up on my Facebook yesterday, and then I spoke firsthand. My girlfriend, she knew someone who was affected by it because they were actually awaiting a Google Doc delivery, and sure as hell, that's what fell through. And yep,
I was offended that I didn't get one until 2 hours after it all happened. Because what am I not real enough of a journalist? But I got one. I got mine. So
I got two.
I was on
one
the
right
list
after the other.
Do we know anyone here who was affected? Because, Derek is asking in the chat if we have any idea how many Google Doc accounts fell victim.
Well, according to Google, 0.1% of all of Gmail's users were affected by this.
But they shut down the app itself.
So they closed down the rogue app. So that rogue app is gone now.
Yeah.
And if you were affected by this and you still don't feel 100% safe about it, even though Google has already shut down the rogue app, you can go to your security settings, and then there should be an area where you can check on the permissions on your Gmail account, what apps you do allow permissions on, and you can just revoke access one by one. You can do the same thing on your Android phone. Also, when you give permissions to any apps.
Thank you for that. I was going to ask you next what our suggestions were for those who were affected.
Yeah.
Before we wrap it up, I still don't understand this red bathing suit thing.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
So this company, they make bathing suits, and they're fairly small. They decided to do a giveaway on their Instagram account. And the giveaway was basically, please post this photo and tag us in the photo.
So they're looking to spam Instagram feeds everywhere.
Pretty much.
By free advertising.
Yeah. It was basically post photos of our product and tag us, so it's free advertising for us. and we'll give you like this free.
We'll give you the whole bathing suit.
Yeah, we'll give you this free
Not
bathing
just like
suit.
a percentage off.
The
or
bathing
something.
suit costs like $64. An average sponsored post on Instagram costs $300. You do the math. All these
Yeah.
people who are desperate for free bathing suits are, basically saving them like 200 and like 30 something dollars. So I mean, they were gonna make a ton off of this, but then it turned out way too many people posted the photo and tagged them in it, and then they couldn't meet the demand.
Right, because they didn't cap it either.
And
there were
then-
like a lot of rookie mistakes.
And then it's
involved.
also a really dumb strategy to like, oh, post this and you'll get the free promo code for it because
I mean, it's not like they're out anything. You didn't sign a contract.
yeah, but they
They
can't,
just look like idiots now.
yeah, they couldn't find every individual user who posted it, because there's like way too many of them and Instagram search isn't really that good.
Nope.
So instead of like individually going through, because there were more than like 5,000 that I had seen, and that's like when I decided to give up counting.
You
So-
individually looked at all of these.
So there were rows of them. So Instagram's like grid does like if you've been tagged in something, it's like 3 by 3 or whatever, and you just keep scrolling down. I counted up to 1,000 like rows. I was like, all right, that's like about 3,000. And I just kept scrolling down. Like I stopped counting, and I was like, this is like probably like 5,000 ish or so in like the last 24 hours. And then there were even more after that. I'm like,
Jeez.
I'm not counting all of this. I'm just gonna more than 5,000, whatever.
Like you said, rookie mistake.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it's not as like much of a blow up as like Fire Festival because there's no Ja Rule involved, but at the same time, it's like 2017.
Who knows?
Is proving,
Maybe Ja Rule
is behind all
posted
this.
this bikini photo too,
Right.
and was like, I want one.
But yeah, like 2017 is proving to be the year where like there have been like a bunch of marketing botches, and like
But-
this is another one of
But
them.
the best part is that because they didn't count all of it, they posted another image and it was like, here's the free promo code. So even if you didn't post the picture,
You just get the free
you
promo code
would get it anyway.
I'm getting
So
myself a red bathing
all that
suit.
spam was completely useless.
Jeez.
And then the dress, all their bathing suits are like sold out on their website now, which you can't even like verify if that's true or not. Maybe they just put sold out so they wouldn't have to like shell out all this stuff because they updated like their terms of the contest where it was like, due to overwhelming demand and we didn't expect this to go viral, we might not we're gonna have to cap this, which basically means we're not gonna fulfill our promises.
So, if anything we've learned from this is that things on the internet tend to go viral, but if you tweet at me, I'll send you a locket of my hair.
Ben will be bald by Monday. All right. Anybody doing anything for Star Wars Day before we call it a day?
There's a bunch of Star Wars stuff on our website for the 40th anniversary. Check it out.
Tons and tons of stuff.
There's like a ton of stuff, so
I'm gonna
enjoy.
I'm gonna live long and prosper.
Right.
Get out.
Okay, but
Get out.
let's call it a week. Thanks everybody for joining in. Great questions and comments as always. Love having you guys here. The 359 podcast is available on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, SoundCloud, FeedBurner, Google Play Music, and of course on CNET.com. We'll see y'all again on Monday later on.
Have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks.